Yeah, I don't know what the heck that was.
All right. That was a new artist. I was going to send them love. Hey, keep doing your thing. Keep trying. That was a good track.
Well, hello, hello. um, this is the new reality, and what can happen or not happen. Um, we're here for episode 17 of I Am Perspective Radio. Creators Create. My name is Mercy, and I'm one of the co-founders and co-creators of I Am Perspective and I Am Perspective Radio. And you there?
I'm just totally thrown off. I apologize. Like we said, this is episode 17. We've done so many in studio, in Zoom. Sometimes there's issues, but we're gonna have a great show. We want to thank everybody on. I'm your co-host Jorel H. Whitfield, and we have some amazing creators with us. I'm looking at all their wonderful faces, and I know them. I'm excited to hear about what they're up to during this time. And we've been having conversations. Just a quick recap of our perspective in the last few weeks for quarantine. We wanted to talk mostly about what we're all dealing with, which is being in quarantine, being in our houses. But very quickly, we recognize that there's still so many other things to talk about. The first few conversations we had about them were really good. It was very cathartic for a lot of people to see other people in-house. And every week since then, we've tried to lean on different conversations about how this is really affecting us. And Nussie and we consider ourselves creators, and we are grateful enough to know a plethora of creators. And so we have a few creators on our platform today, and we're going to let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us what you create. And then we have a slew of questions for you, some DNA samples and things, and it's going to get really deep. So
we want everything. We want to know everything. Really, any one of you can start. Just let us know. This is your opportunity to introduce yourselves. We do have some questions for you, like Jorel mentioned, but this is an opportunity to really let us know what you're working on. What are you a creator of? Anyone can start.
I will start because I rarely start. I always let everyone else go first, so I'm going to start
today. I was
today.
just about to pick you too, Liz. So.
So I am an opera singer and really a singer in general. I don't only sing opera, I also sing jazz and other art forms, other musical genres. I am, in addition to that, a business owner because I created a business around my voice lessons and career coaching that is a little bit different than the traditional format in terms of what I know everyone else has introductions, and I really want to get into the deep discussion part of this. But in terms of what I've been specifically creating during this quarantine period, I actually have written a journal, a practice journal for singers that's about to be released on the market within the next month. And so that's been kind of the big driver with me, and creating new programs for my students and working on a new blog around transformation that I've been kind of holding in my heart for a while, and now it's starting to come together. But I'm working on a lot of stuff. I'm creating a lot of stuff because, as I said in my post this week,
yes,
as a creator, I can't help but create. So I'm creating.
And thank you for going first, Liz, because you were kind of a little bit of the inspiration behind even this episode, right?
Awesome.
Right. When you posted that quote, the thing about creators is that we can't help to create. That was something that definitely resonated with me.
As a creator, I can't help
what does that look like during all of this? Which we'll definitely get into, but thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Loris Bell. I'm the CEO and founder of Hues of Bell. I'm a landscape photographer. I also shoot people as well from time to time. I'm also a writer. I write poetry. And I also host Motivational Mondays, which I just started doing the last 8 weeks of quarantine. So those are some of the things that I've been working on, particularly writing in different languages as well.
Oh, amazing. Okay, that sounds excellent. Writers, shout out to the writers. I'm also a writer. I know we have other writers in the box. We're not even in a house, in the box. In my little box.
Sometimes I'm a writer.
All right, so I'll go. Hi everyone, my name is Yuko and I am multimedia artist and I love to create in general. So anything that inspires me, music and primarily music, performing art. And I started writing a lot more. And what I've been working on really is how can I marinate art and social change into one space so that we can create a greater impact. And what I've been working on during this quarantine is like one of the off-Broadway musical that I was working on was like postponed indefinitely because of this COVID situation, but we're still developing and we get to hone in all the messaging. And I'm working with an amazing team of like Japanese picture book that is being developed into this musical. So it's been really exciting. Yeah, so during this time, I have to say that I've been reconnecting with my own heritage a lot more. That's been my creation, the relationship with my heritage.
Man, this is amazing. I thought you guys were just like coloring and stuff. Really, okay. We gotta have a whole different set of questions now. All right.
And I guess I'm going now.
Now you just made her feel bad if she's coloring.
No, I know what she's doing, so it's just as much.
Hi guys, my name is Paloma Gina Garcia. I am the CEO and founder of The Copper Chair. It is an interior styling company aimed at creatively improving your spaces. Obviously, that is in mind, but very much geared towards helping you create your environment through the inside out. During this quarantine time, I have been really busy finding my own peace and creating my space to find my peace during these uncertain times that very much connect to my past traumas and really were the reason why I started my company. So in starting, in having this time of quarantine to really self-reflect, I've had the opportunity to connect with individuals that need the support to improve mental health through your environment. So I've had the opportunity to work with people, doing workshops, to stimulate and promote mental health with design. That's really what I've been doing lately.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your, we're going to start the whole show off with thank you, because I know as artists and creators, we don't often get thanked for creating. It's just something, as Liz said, it's like, oh, it's something we do because we have to do it. But I'm a believer that creation is a fabric for a lot of things in this world, from music to art. And just in what you were talking about within 4 different people, it's like 4 different parts of the world that you guys are operating in. So thank you for creating during these times. As we said, like, this was about coming from the place of, you know, how does somebody even muster up the will to do this, right? You know, during this time, there's so many people who are just trying to figure out their bearings, right? Some people are just getting used to a new routine. And from what it sounds like, you guys are just turning this up and taking on more than before. You know, at the heart of it, what has got you going? What keeps you going? What has you creating when so many people are, you know,
Well,
distracted?
before you say why you're creating, what does creating mean to you?
What
Right,
does
let's
creating mean to you?
kind of talk, right? Because I think creating for me, and what comes up for me is about 2 years ago, I was on a panel, on one of Yuko's panels, and it was about creatives. And I remember at that time, I was like, why am I on this panel right now? Like, what am I creating? What do you think I'm creating right now? Because I personally, I mean, now you might call me a poet and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't think, because if you're not doing like something specifically like art or like something like tangible, like I'm not going on stage and singing and performing or anything like that. And so I didn't consider myself to be a creative. So what does it mean to even be a creative as you're answering that question? Like, it's a two-part question.
I'll go first because this really resonates with you, Nessie, because I create spaces for people, right? And you know, a lot of people think it's really just like hanging a picture frame on a wall and like adding a plant here and there. But really for me, it goes way beyond like aesthetics. So like if I am adding plants to a room, I'm creating like life and joy. And like this goes way beyond like aesthetics. Like your environment really shapes how you feel, your mood. It can, you know, it can create or destroy. So I know that, you know, when I put my heart and my soul into a space, especially when I'm connected with my client, I'm creating joy. I'm creating a space for people to bring in their family so that they can create their own joy, so that they can create their memories. I'm creating a stress-free environment. You know, like when you are surrounded by things that make you feel comfortable, your stress levels go down, you know, your biochemistry improves. Like I'm creating health even. And it's not just me, it's people in my industry. So, you know, it goes way beyond like for you know what you said, Nasi, that you know you it doesn't have to look a certain type of way to be a creative. You are really a creator of a million things. Um, that's just for me. I know for a lot of people it can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, and if I can, I would actually insert that I believe everyone is a creator. And I love that you asked that question, Nasi, what does creating mean to you? And you talked about not having the perspective of yourself as a creator prior to that particular time, because I think a lot of people think that to be creator, you have to be artistic. And that's just not the case. I think creators can be scientists, doctors, nurses, teachers. I think every single person on the planet actually is a creator. And I think the unique thing about this time, and part of why I wrote what I wrote, is that this time is a time that we all have the opportunity to awaken to the power of our own creativity and to get really present to how we create and what impact and what we're putting out into the world. And I know for myself right now, that's what is, to answer the other part of the question, that's what's really got me so fired up. It's because I see this time as a time when we really are cultivating our own impact and creating it's a time to just have a completely new approach to everything that we do. And it's such a unique time. And because I think from the time that, from the time of the Industrial Revolution, I don't know if there's been another moment like this in history where we get kind of a blank slate with things and get to sort of start over. And and not that we're, the world is continuum, blah, blah, blah. So it's not that we're technically starting over, but there is just a specific thing about this moment where we get to be in a totally, totally new space of creation. And that's really got me inspired right now.
Wow, thank you, Liz. That's a wonderful answer. That's something I've been saying a lot too, that this feels like a totally new time. Blank slate, as you said. And we're like right in the middle of it. So it's hard to see it with that optimism. So thank you so much for that. Because I know a lot of people need to hear that. We're hearing so much of the opposite of like everything slowed up and it's this and it's going to be 2025 until we ever see each other again.
Right.
So thank you very
and
much.
I do think the time that we're going to reunite really in person and in big crowds and like in that way that we in New York love to commune with each other. I think that's further off than people want to admit, but that just to me creates more space for us to be in this time, to be in this moment in a present way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to add that, adding on to what Liz said, we're creating in every moment, even within stillness. It also goes hand in hand with what Paloma said about creating an environment for yourself to allow yourself to be still and still create something. It's not necessarily all the time creating tangible things, but you can also create within yourself.
Absolutely.
That's something we were going to get into in a second, but we'll hold that.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because we were pretty much sure that's how this conversation would go anyway. Just how we could start talking about creativity, then we can start talking about personal development, we can start talking about self-care, all those things. So thank you very much.
Yuko, did you want to add to that or?
Yeah, and I'm so glad. I 100% agree with Liz. And like starting from the blank slate, and especially with the theater, right? Like Broadway's not going to open for God knows how long, right? And it's like a last of the priorities, and unfortunately, but the connection that we get to build and the empathy that we get to create by stage and story and a performance, that's something we crave so much. And in regards to your question of what is creating, for me, creating is really about filling the gap between like one or two people. And so how can I connect with you together? How can I find what we have in common so that we get to have an opportunity to really get to know each other? How can I love each other, or how can we co-create something together? So I think that's what it means to be creating, and that's really a learning experience, and everything is different. And I love when Paloma said it is about like not tangible things all the time, because it's so hard to articulate that what's here in our heart, but that's what drives us as a creator, as an artist. And then we want to feel the buzz, we want to feel the high, and we want to connect with people. And so creating could mean so many different things. Creating could mean like whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, we feel that so much. I'm an artist. I love the stage. There's no place like that. I tell everybody that Iron Perspective is my heart's work. We're gonna do this forever. But there's no feeling like connecting on stage, and that's gone now. Not just for me, for a whole world full of artists, street performers, poets, spoken word artists, and everything, comedians. All of us are in this same fraternity of artists, and it's more than just entertaining. I'm speaking on that because what Yuko just said is that connection, and I know that was a main concern for artists and so forth. Like, how do you replicate that? Where are you going to get that from? If you don't get it to give, where are you going to get it from?
What I heard from what Yuko said and what resonated with me is having a purpose or passion behind your work, right? So like, what does creating, like, is your creativity based on a purpose or a passion or both, right? Because that could be a driving factor in what it is that you're doing in the first place. So for us here at Iron Perspective, a lot of the work that we've done, a lot of the work that we do is creating connections, right? And so when we don't have that face-to-face component anymore, what does that really look like for us? And, you know, there's a lot of other organizations that may have been hosting events or doing, you know, somewhat similar things as us who have decided to take a step back during this time. But for us, I think our purpose was renewed in an even more urgent sense, like why we're doing this in the first place, like what's our purpose? Like we're very passionate about the work that we do. So for me, it's both a purpose and a passion. Just can't tell by my screen name, but you know, like, so what does that? Do you think your creativity is based on a purpose, or is it passion work? What does it originate in?
Once again.
I mean, I think it's good to say both, right? For I think a lot of us,
I think it's, for me, it's definitely both. I would definitely say, oh, uh-oh.
No, we all agree.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you, Liz.
Yes.
Okay. I just had a weird error message on my, about my connection. But anyway, I would definitely say it's both for me. And as you all were talking just now, something that was coming up for me, similar to what Nusi said, but specifically Jorel and Yuko, while you're talking about that absent connection from the audience, like the live audience. There's nothing really to replace that. But I think that goes back to the heart of this again, this moment of creating it in new ways. And I've enjoyed watching so many artists actually do exactly that by creating their Instagram live streams and things like that. And it almost in a way gives the audience even more access to you and even more opportunity to connect with you at the individual level. Like people feel like they're really having a conversation with you and when they're on your social pages, which is something completely different. But as far as the purpose versus the passion thing, I don't know if they are separate or if they can be separated so much. I know that my own was probably started with passion, you know, just the passion for singing and for music and all of that. But certainly the more I experience sharing it with others, both as a coach of that and of other types of creativity, it really is rather, I feel almost imperative that we be, even in normal times, everyone doesn't always have an outward performance outlet. You know, you don't always have that stage that somebody has made for you. And sometimes you have to make your own stage in order to really serve your full purpose. And I think that's something that we continually learn as creators and creatives and specifically as performers. But short answer, I think it's intertwined. A long answer, I could keep going on for about an hour, but I won't.
Anyone else want to share around that purpose and passion? I know, Paloma, you were saying that it's both.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, my purpose drove my passion even further. It became exponential. I think for me, my why is very important to it was like almost the driving engine to pursue my passion. My purpose was very important. I had to self-heal through my environment. And when that worked for me, I felt like everyone had to have the opportunity to feel what I felt. So for me, it's definitely both. And I think that maybe purpose is is just as equal or maybe even more. I have to have a purpose in what I do to be authentic and to really help my community and who I'm trying to touch for me.
All right.
Um, so for me, I think they need to coexist together. Although for me, it started as passion, or even like it started as a hobby, and then went into a passion. But I think they need to coexist together, so that they both can elevate one another. And I mean that in a way that where your passion and your purpose kind of collide together or come together, to pretty much be like to present what you intend to share with the world.
And when I felt on that, like everything is together, sometimes it feels like there's no separation between passion and purpose. And specifically when it comes to purpose, I still have days like, what's my purpose? And I ask myself that question all the time and go, why am I creating? What is this for? I know that I love creating, and I can, as Liz said earlier, like I cannot not create it because that's who I am. And maybe that's the purpose, and it's a matter of embracing it. So it comes and goes all the time depending on what I'm working on. Passion for creating comes first, and that leads into purpose, or sometimes it's driven from the purpose and that turns into passion. So it intertwine all the time.
Glad we got those different. I think that they need to go together in order for you to be in full swing. But as a teacher for writing and my students, a lot of them come to the table with just one. They just have a passion. And I know there's people that will hear this who only have passion right now, or they had purpose before and they don't know how to start because their purpose is gone or their purpose has shifted. And no right or wrong answers. We didn't prompt that. We usually prompt our conversations with Iron Perspective because this seems so much like family. But a thing with Iron Perspective, it really was always about perspective. It wasn't about a right or wrong answer. So it's always great when we get these different perspectives from you guys. And me adding mine is hearing everything that you're going through. It is the journey of seeing both of them come together. Sometimes you just got to jump in there with the passion, or sometimes you just know you have the purpose and you have to find the passion. So it's really excellent to hear you all in merging both of them. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. So my next question for all of you, right? We are all in our homes with an abundance of time that we might not have had previously to, what do we call it? Whatever, previously to this pre-life that we had, right? What has being in quarantine, what has that given you access to, right? In terms of your creativity and creating. Do you feel more, so I'm gonna share this. I recently received this message, and it was like the holy trinity of creating, right? Which is motivation, inspiration, and time. All things that for me personally is available to me right now. I've always had a little bit of motivation and inspiration, but time was lacking. Like I did not have the time or the mental focus to concentrate on something. And, Jarrell was kind of like talking about writers and who considers himself a writer earlier. And I think he was kind of like alluding to me a little bit because I keep having that question of whether or not I'm a writer if I don't have something written, right? Like if it's like not written, am I a writer?
Nessie
And
has a book with
I
75
didn't,
poems coming out. That's all. I'm going back on mute. That's all.
yes. So during this time, I've had this vision of writing this, book from Tin Huts to Palaces. And this is a vision that I've had for a really long time, but I wasn't actually sitting down and writing it. However, come this quarantine time, somehow, as Jarrell just mentioned, I have now over 75 poems. Not what I was planning on writing in the first place, right? But now this is now available to me. Now I have motivation, inspiration, and time. And so now, like, I'm here writing poetry. And so this book is almost complete. And this is not something I've done this whole time. And now all of a sudden I find myself doing. Like, I can't, like, the words are coming to me. I'm just creating, like, it's there. And so for me personally, this time has been very inspiring. It's been allowing me to create in ways I don't find myself having the same roadblocks or fear of judgment or no's or anything like that. Because, I mean, hey, who's really judging you right now anyway? Like, who got the time? Like, you know what I mean? So for me, that's gone. And so I'm able to create more. It might not be the same experience for all of you, but what has that experience been like creating during the time of quarantine?
I'm gonna kind of jump on that. So one of the first epiphany that I had since we got into the quarantine was the lack of the blessing in disguise. So what I found out was, as I'm someone freelancer artist who have been living the hustling and bustling life for past decade, not knowing that nothing is happening right now gave me the most stability that I never felt before, right? Nothing is happening. If anything happens, it's cherry on top. All right. So I had all the anxiety go away in the first couple of days of the quarantine. And all right, so if nothing is happening, if no audition is happening, if no production is happening, if there's no show that we get to produce on, so whatever we get to do, it's fine. So nobody gives a damn, and I get to just create, do whatever I want, and like nobody's gonna judge me. So that was my motivation in the beginning, and because my transition was so smooth in the beginning, like I started feeling a lot more like stagnant recently, and in the sense that, okay, the online is saturated, everybody's putting their things, like nobody's watching it. So it come to the point of me and my judgmental space, but I still get to come back and how blessed I am that I get to have all these times so that I get to create and not have to be in the beat up and say like, but you didn't create. No, I still get to create. And if I put it out, great. If I don't, that's also great. So being able to be compassionate to myself.
So you're saying it doesn't really matter how many people are appreciating what you're creating. It's still worth creating, right? Like that's what.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like right now I appreciate that. And I specifically want to say that because I haven't started creating my own material until recently. Like as a musical theater actor, as an actor, I've always dealt with somebody else's project that I was a part of it. But creating my own material, that's a completely different story. And I had such a high expectation and the perfectionism. So like being able to create my own material with such a like compassion and low expectation was such a relief for me.
Great.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
I just wrote that down. Nothing's happening. I want to hear from the rest of you. That's excellent.
I want to piggyback off of what you said. She said something very important that resonated with me. Where she said she was a little bit stagnant and kind of felt like, she was judging herself for not creating for a little while. And that's something that I resonated with because again, we're human, and we're living in unprecedented times. And like, speaking for myself, I as a sufferer from anxiety and panic, I kind of became stagnant, and my creativity was on hold for a little bit because I was busy dealing with how to deal with life. And so I did feel guilty a little bit, like Yuko mentioned, and I had to get out of my head and allow myself grace, because your creativity doesn't go away because, you know, a life event happens. It's put on hold, and you just have to find it again, and you have to find it through your passion. And I think that little moment that we had of, you know, like shock, you know, we had to, I personally had to figure out a way to connect with my passion and connect it to how can I help my community, not even my clients, because business stops sometimes, you know, but when you have a passion and a purpose, for me, it was reaching out to my community. How can I help my community through design? And I had to get out of my head and figure out creative ways to still connect. How do I still connect, and not necessarily go into someone's home and design their home? Well, how about I come up with a different project where we can remotely connect online, and I can show you how to create joy in your space. And maybe you get to feel the same joy that I feel when I'm coming into your home to work with you. And so it was just about getting out of my head and figuring out new ways to cope with trauma, myself personally speaking, and also connecting with the community and help them heal their traumas. Like, that's how I started to get out of my little rut of being stagnant, and allowing myself grace for having that little rut, and moving on and moving forward and being who I really am, a creative. So that's how I connected with Yuko. So thank you, Yuko, for bringing that up, because a lot of us are like, oh, we create all the time. Like, no, we don't. Like, we have our moments, you know, we're human. I'm human just like everyone else. And thank you, Yuko.
Absolutely. And to your point, you know, for the first 2 weeks of this crisis, I actually was very sick. And I'm pretty sure that I had the virus, but of course, at the time they weren't testing everyone. And that was actually adding to my own anxiety, you know, around everything that was going on at the time. Because I was literally in bed for like the first 2 weeks after I started to quarantine on the 15th. And I think I went to bed on the 18th of March. And I don't think I got out of bed really until the first week in April. And so when I did, at first I was like so overjoyed about being, oh my gosh, I'm well, I'm feeling my energy back and all of that. But then for the first couple of days after that, I had this deep, deep sadness, you know, almost like a grievance around everything that was going around, a grieving around everything that was happening, everything that at the time I felt was really lost, you know. But after a couple of days, you know, I started to meditate. I knew that I didn't want to stay in that place. And I think that's a super important piece, is to know where you want to be emotionally, mentally, health-wise, et cetera. But I knew that I didn't want to stay in that place. And so I started to really meditate and do a lot of journal writing and stuff like that. And at a point, I just came to a profound peace with everything, a peace. And I realized that I had all this space, you know, space around the things that previously seemed so urgent and now. And everything is now. Yes, there is urgency to our purpose. And also there is space around how we get to be with ourselves and with other people, around our creativity, around the creative process. And that's the thing that this quarantine, I think, has added to my own creative life, is space and connection in a different way to who I am as a creator. And there's a quote that Pavarotti said, and a big lead up, but at the end he says, it's not discipline, it's devotion. And it really is. And in a time like this, when there may or may not be a monetary reward to everything that you're doing in the end, that devotion is a thing that I have found really, really keeps me moving in that space, that devotion to myself, devotion to the art, devotion to the creator's spirit above us and the planet, you know, and just the devotion to what I'm doing. Whereas when I try to be disciplined, because I deal with that a lot, I have to discipline. I have to be, you know, this and that. And people who know me know that I can be a little bit of a driver sometimes with things. And but to actually like tap into the devotion and say, wait, this is actually love here. It's not duty. It's actually love.
That really resonates with us, right? Because a lot of the work that we're doing, as we say, like we've been re-empowered in our purpose. When you're devoted to the work and you like believe in what it is you're doing, you're gonna, regardless of whether or not there's a potential for money at the end of the road, right? Like if that's not your driving force, like I think my personal perspective is that now we get to see who actually had a real passion and devotion towards their work versus, you know, some people are creating on demand because they're just creating on demand. It's not really a passion work. They're just doing it, right? Like we can be honest and just say that as well. Like, what is it that you're really devoted to? So that definitely resonates with me there.
This is excellent. I'm just taking notes. You guys got it. This has been a great episode. You guys got the rest of it. I'm just gonna sit.
I did. For me, it was a little different. So prior to the quarantine, I wasn't able to really create much. Writing, I was experiencing writer's block. So I wasn't even journaling at all. I didn't have the motivation or the inspiration to do so. Come the quarantine, I think I started journaling, and I got words on a paper, more than just words, like paragraphs, and started with lines and then paragraphs. And for me, I took the time, I'm taking the time to just allow myself to be. The days that I feel like writing, I'll write. To create, I'll create. What feels the most natural. Because sometimes I'm so hard on myself that I'm like, okay, today I have to write, or today I have to do this, instead of having it flow more organically. So I resonate with all of you guys in different ways. And I love that it's not discipline, it's devotion. It goes back to what you really love to do, and it goes back to purpose and the passion too. So I think being in the moment and embracing that of what you love will, like, at least for me, makes it much more easier to create. It could be poetry or even do photography as well.
Wow, that was really that was an excellent segment. I think we can chop all that up and really. Seriously, everybody dropped some great jewels. Laura, you just said I'm not gonna go through everything, but this is what stood out, right? You did this thing that I do, and you said we, and then you went to I. I do that all the time. Like I talk for everybody. I know we've been through all of the proper trainings that I shouldn't do that, but I do that, and I think about why it's done. And especially during a time like this, how important it is for us to do the I as opposed to we, because what Nussie and I have learned in these past few weeks is that all these individual boxes that we are in right now, literally, when different walls, different plants in the background, like it's all us in our space. You in your space is uniquely you. How you're dealing with this, how you're handling this is uniquely yours. So That was great. Grace came up. I've been using that word a lot lately. Space, I love that. I think, not to go too deep into it, but I'm like Lori in the sense that I'm opposite of a lot of people. I've been doing art for 20 years. And I absolutely need it. It's not discipline, it's devotion. That might be a tattoo. I need that because I've been in this loving relationship with art for all this time, and it has been this nonstop nagging of discipline, of you self-correcting how disciplined or undisciplined you are or are not, and never really looking at it as devotion. It's like this constant, like, I'm not doing it enough. I know Nussie and I do that constantly with this, you know, this thing that nobody asked us to do. And we're still like, are we doing it enough? Are we having enough content? Sometimes we have to be like, oh, nobody said we had to do this, you know?
There's no meter, there's nobody judging.
Yeah, right. Like, there's a whole court and a council that we have to answer to at the end of the year. You didn't have enough empathy this year. You didn't create enough perspective this year. So thank you for all of that. One of the last things we want to touch on and ask here, and this is a free question, just how you feel with the creation and what you're seeing that you're creating now, and how people are starting to, as Liz said, get more personable with artists and so forth. Do you think that artists will be looked at differently moving forward?
And to put that deeper, really like what we're asking, right? I think we're in a new reality, and going forward, we get to re-examine how we're going to look at different things, right? So even, you know, traditionally artists have been known as like the starving artist, right? Like, how do you turn art into money, and are you appreciated, and all of that, right? And I think what comes up for me during this time is that now, you know, all these celebrities that we've been paying a lot of money for, right, to do, you know, to play basketball. This is my own perspective, so, you know, I'm just sharing this openly, but if all these movie stars and all these celebrities that were paid so much money to, you know, share their talents, and they're out here, they're not doing jack shit. No one's playing basketball, they're not creating movies, they're not like creating, right? But here we are creating. And I think that you know, artists have been seen as not valuable, and we don't often are seen as valuable. Even in the schools, arts are the first thing that we cut, right? When there's a budget cut, it's in the arts. And I think what I'm noticing now is that people are like, I think there's a newfound appreciation and value for the arts. Even like, you know, we have people doing, you know, you have singers competing against each other on IG, like it's a whole new thing, right? Like there's a new way of looking at it. So do you believe that after this, there'll be a new appreciation? There's a more of an opportunity? Like what is your perspective on that?
I certainly hope so. I think it's such a good question, and it's something I've been contemplating a lot myself. I don't know about everyone else, but I really am thinking so much about this. And I think there's just the arts in our country is just one way that we expose inequality, and that the way inequality is so on display in our system, right? Like the level of inequity that exists in the arts is just absurd at a systemic level, and also at an economic level, and even at a consumption level, you know, at the way that we consume art and that we appreciate art and artists. So many other countries and so many other societies like actually support their artists, you know, and like provide, especially in the bigger Western countries that aren't the US, a lot of them actually provide different types of support for their artists. And it's such a missing piece for us. And the way that we are all, most of us freelancers in our craft, some of us after doing absurd amounts of schooling in order to become great at that particular craft. So you spent all this money at the thing, and then you can't even expect, not that you can't make it, but you can't expect per se to have a specific steady income around it. Yet you are, you know, investing all this time and everything into it. It'll be very interesting, and time will out. I'm usually a person who tries to predict everything. I love predicting the future. It's like a hobby, but I don't know what to predict because I think it can go either way. And I hope the optimist in me and the person in me who believes that we are in the midst of a major awakening right now, believes that this is a necessary part of the awakening, that we would actually embrace art and creativity as a necessary part of how our world moves forward. Like, just, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation when we were talking about how everybody's a creator and a creative, and you cannot have innovation in technology without the perspective of creativity. And so we have to foster artists and we have to foster creation. And I think one thing that I see happening and that I hope happens more, I do believe that will happen more, is that the individual artist will find more and more space in this current moment. And that's something that was already happening prior to the crisis outbreak, is that individual artists were finding more platforms and more venues for our own art. And so I hope and do believe, I am going to predict, that there is a space that is opening up for artists to exist at all different levels and different genres and different venues, performing artists, visual artists, creative artists, and every type of artist, I think now has a place. And what will separate people now is not so much that systemic thing where somebody gets chosen and then they become the perpetual chosen person. It will be more the people who choose ourselves and dare to put ourselves and our creations out there in a way that has the power to impact others.
Impact.
Impact.
So, you know, just putting this a little bit in there, and you guys can feel free to add in your piece as well, but this week is, for us, Impact Week. We are part of this marketing campaign where really the discussion is, what does impact look like? So on Friday, you guys can catch us at noon. We're doing a Facebook interview live with Red Elephants Inc., and we will be talking about impact and what that looks like in the community, right? We've been, in terms of creating, what has the impact been for I Am Perspective, period. And we can definitely get into that. We're working on some interesting things. But before we end off with that, anyone else want to add in anything to where the future of artists and appreciation looks like?
Go ahead, you go.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I had a couple of things that came to mind. I think that creating has been recreated and reinvented, as well as it has gone back, because a lot of, for example, for me, I didn't think to, write. And that's something that was a hobby of mine for many years when I was younger, and it came back to me. So I've re-established that habit. So I think that's something that's gonna, that's one of the things that will, I've been writing, but for me, it's been something that I would want to share. and finding different ways and ideas to not only teach people, but also allow them the space to be, you know, creative themselves in whatever form that may be.
Wonderful.
Yuko?
I love that. This is one of my favorite topic, and I am idealist. I am a positive, like optimist. So I'm gonna echo
Yes.
on this.
Optimism.
All right, and I, I actually wrote an article about this a long time ago because I truly believe that artists are the healers, artists are the leaders, artists are the teachers. Right, through our creativity, we learn all these things, we share. And historically, we are the hustlers from the Renaissance. And historically, we are the messenger when all the oracles and the priests and shamans are kidnapped. Artists were the people who kept the history and tradition in our culture. So we just need to remind ourselves that, so that it's not always about the money. It's always about the monetary exchange. It's about the healing. It's about the impact that you just mentioned. That's why UN is bringing in more artists to make a change on this planet. That's why like all these celebrity gets together so that we can make a broader impact on healing and collective energy. So, and like I truly hope and believe that like we as an artist really get to trust ourselves and value ourselves enough so that the whole entire society can also start undoing the brainwash of the struggling artist mindset. The collectively we get to heal that right now.
Yeah, struggling artist. The artist used to be the historian. Yeah, thank you.
So the healing, artist and healing, right? And that leads us to Paloma and what that could look like, right? So Paloma, why don't you share a little bit about that, actually?
One of the things that came up for me when I heard impact was the first picture that came into my brain was the picture of the apartment building in Italy that had all of the inhabitants of the apartments out on their balconies with like pots and pans and like just creating a feeling of community, of connection, of joy through creating like a little instrument of, like you don't have to be necessarily labeled by other people a creative or an artist to realize that you yourself have it within you. And like I said earlier, to create these moments of like the people in Italy create the moments of sense of joy and look at the impact that had around the world. And I think like during this quarantine, a lot of us are gonna find that we have talents that we never tapped into and that we were kind of forced to tap into because sometimes you have to, you have no choice, you have to get yourself out of your own head sometimes. And, I think during this time, a lot of artists are gonna come out from the woodworks that never knew that they had incredible talent. And that's gonna definitely impact how we look at artists going forward. The Beyoncés are wonderful, but so are the neighbors in those Italian apartments that created such an impact around the world.
Yeah, that is absolutely fact. We're being exposed in our culture to see, I love the actors, I love everybody, but what's an actor without the whole industry? What's any of these one individuals now in our homes, in our apartments? How does that help you? How does Beyonce, no shots to Queen Bee? Yeah, we do. I don't want the hype coming from me. We love Beyonce over here, but we've been definitely looking at what it looks like for the artists in the local creative to be the new rock star. Not that that matters, but the person that the kids look up to, that the neighborhood looks up to, that the neighborhood supports. Because like us, like you all, no one told us to go do this. Nobody said, hey, go ahead and start this up for the folks. Hey, go connect with your homeland. And nobody's doing, you know, this is all coming from our hearts. And we know there's so many other people out there. Just in New York alone, we've gotten very familiar with people who are doing the work before quarantine, but especially after quarantine. You know, Nasi and I have partnered with a lot of dope local folks to help. You know, we got with an amazing seamstress and made a rack of masks. You know,
Our seamstress is a bridal dress designer, right?
Right.
So
You know, this is somebody who really does this. You know, we were like, oh, can you make these little masks? And she jumped into it. Not only did she jump into it, but that then created a new stream of revenue for her and a new
Awesome.
way of creating, you know, because she's not making wedding dresses like that, you know. So just in that one connection, we were able to ignite somebody else's creation, get them started on possibly a whole new business plan, and get masks to the people, you know, to essential workers, to frontline workers.
and these masks are a
That's
piece of art
impact.
itself.
Yes,
These
thank
masks are a
you.
piece of art itself, right? Like, you know, you can make masks and just to make it, but like to actually, like, you know, like you can see the love that she's put behind making the mask and perfecting it. Like, you know,
Right.
like she was telling me all this stuff and I'm like, okay, like I'm like, I don't really know. I'm like, all right, sure, right? But like, it's a beautiful made mask. Like even
Real
when she's
creations
putting out
and
the
real
pattern.
creators are going to put their all into it. And
Mhm.
we've seen that. We went and started I Am Protected because we wanted to collect all the heroes, you know, for lack of better terms. We wanted to unite the heroes in our city and beyond, and give everybody a platform to recognize. You know, a few episodes ago we had two women on here from Harlem in Florida, and they were both talking about what they've done and to step up in their communities. And we were just like, why are you doing this? And that alone was a great conversation, just to what in you, and this is kind of what we led the question to you all today. You answered brilliantly of what in you sparks that, and how do we create impact within other people to maybe not do what you're doing. We know that everybody can't do I Am Perspective, but along with us creating masks and collecting masks, we started a letter campaign. We've been encouraging people to just write letters. Write letters to your family. But then there are also programs that are going on right now that you can, they're looking for letters to send out to different workers in different hospitals and everything like that. Paloma, excuse me, who's in our top corner, we were just speaking with her. We're not going to go all into the detail, but we have an amazing idea and plan of
Well, we
bringing
can
art.
we can go a little bit into what it is that we're doing.
Yes. I don't know, the copyrights and pages.
No, we don't have to. Like, and I think I don't know why, as artists, we kind of even undermine what it is that we're doing, right? And so, like, I kind of threw the question at Paloma, hoping she was gonna bring it up, but she didn't bring it up. So this is me bringing out my little coaching card right now. Like, why don't we talk about the things that we're working on and that we're creating, right? So we're still in the process of it, but, you know, just letting everyone know, we believe that there is therapy created through creating art. And so what we're looking to do is go into shelters, halfway homes, nursing homes, whatever that looks like, and creating spaces for the people there to have access to art as healing. And also the other part of it is also we're looking to organize artists, right? A lot of us are out here making art and it's sitting in our homes and it's not being seen, right? So like, what would it look like for artists to donate their pieces, and then we're able to decorate homes and create a home for people who are stuck in their homes right now? Like, you know, I think a lot of us are privileged. We have, you know, I'm comfortable in my apartment. I have things to look at. I have pictures up on the wall, whatever, like whatever you've set up. But a lot of people don't have access to that. When you're getting a shelter, when you're in a halfway home, you really get the basics. And so Paloma, and I'm going to lead it to you so we can we do have on the time, like what it is exactly that you do and you're looking to create in these spaces. And then, everybody else, like what is it that you are creating right now and how does that look for them?
I'm sorry, I have to pop off the call right now. So it's been such a beautiful and amazing pleasure to be with you all tonight and to share this space with
Liz,
you.
how can
And I
we
look
follow
forward
you
to,
and support you?
Oh, please do follow me at I am Lisa Stefani on Instagram. And also you can follow my studio lists page on my Facebook. And soon you'll be able to follow the Perfect Practice journal and app as well. And I'll definitely but you'll see all of that stuff will be on my IG page mostly.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
Paloma?
Yeah, so basically, to finish what Nessie was saying, my company, the Copper Chair, originally got inspired. We had the opportunity to work with an organization called Hate is Beautiful, who empowers youth in inner city communities. And so my company went in, did like a huge makeover for a high school in Brooklyn, and the impact that it had on the students with just like new desks, paintings on the walls, like it was.
This is a beautiful classroom. Like we walked in there, we're like, where are we right now? This is not.
It was. Thank you guys. It was such a big difference. It was a collective effort from a lot of community members that really made it happen. So we got the inspiration from that big makeover reveal and how it had an impact on socially and emotionally in the inner city communities. And so we decided why not expand that and go a lot further and try to impact adults. And so we actually were fortunate enough to bump into a couple of organizations that had housing shelters and transitional shelters that were housing women in transition, women and men in transition coming from incarceration back into the community. And, we thought, why not have the same impact that we were aiming for the students, for the impacting and just as impacting or even more for the adults who were in need of so many resources to feel like they weren't just in limbo and actually coming into a home. So the inspiration was to come in and design an incredible space, an incredible environment through the help of the community. And that's what we're working on right now. We are partnering up with different organizations, and I Am Perspective being one of them. They are incredible at inspiring. They jumped on board. And so that's really what we're working on right now. We're working to get funding. We're working to get any kind of resources that we can to improve the environment, because improving your environment really improves your sense of self-worth and your sense of inspiration and creativity. So like the aim is to help these people transition super smoothly, to feel at home, to feel inspired, to want to go out there and feel their best when they're interviewing for jobs, when they're trying to assimilate back into society. So, and we don't want to just stop there, we want to try to impact as many people as we can. So that's really what we're working on doing right now, connecting, networking, and I Am Perspective is coming along with the Copper Chair. That's a really big project, a special one. And we're also doing workshops, because it doesn't necessarily have to be like design, right? The workshops that I Am Perspective and the Copper Chair are working on is having a sense of connection through art. So right now we're gathering a lot of art supplies that we're going to deliver to these shelters for the parents that have children who their kids aren't being stimulated mentally, creatively. So we're looking to just build on these workshops for self-help and self-improvement. Creative stimulation all around, 1,000,000% everywhere.
And just to add on to that, we are hoping to have our first live event on May 28th. And we are working on a coloring book and a color therapy workshop, right? So, you know, children, kids, anyone really of any age can join in during this session, right? We're gonna have a special PDF. We're creating a coloring book right now. And we are inviting local artists to submit pieces, right? So this coloring book will be a unique coloring book created by artists that are willing to put in their work, like they're willing to like share their artwork for others. So, you know, that's something I'm really excited about. I think we just started talking about this yesterday and it's like already blowing up into a whole
Listen,
thing.
when there's passion and purpose, the
Yes.
ball is like this.
Yes.
I was going to say right from that,
Yeah.
Paloma, thank you, as I thanked everybody for doing your part. And then something that we talked about earlier, just like not knowing your impact or so forth. We're in a world where interior design might not be looked at as essential, or it might be something like, oh man, that's something that you get to have. You have an interior designer. And I've been in many classrooms and I taught a lot of kids, and it really wasn't until I walked into Paloma's class where I was like, God damn it, I want my class to be like this. I would have came to class if my class was like this. I would have been in class every day, you know, the way we, you know, you got to see them, we got to see them with you not there. And the ownership that they had of like, yo, this is my class. This is, we got, somebody came in here and did this for us. It changes it. It changed their outlook. It changed the way they wanted to learn.
It doesn't look like a prison cell. Like, you know, like I remember like the schools, I'm like, where like, you like be looking at the ceiling, there's holes in there.
Nothing warm about them zones at all.
No, the main goal was to make everyone that walked into that space feel like they were deserving of it, that they deserve to have a space where they feel at home and where they feel like they have the best opportunities, just like everyone else. It doesn't matter if you're in the inner city community, you are just as deserving as everyone else. And that's really why we synergize so well with I Am Perspective, because everyone is deserving to have an opportunity to have a voice.
All right. I want to echo that to all of our creators, poets, writers, multimedia artists, actors, like all of it is important and it matters. You know, we know that, but it is great to hear that and it be true from somebody else. It matters. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Whenever I hear it, I was like, oh, it's great, man. That's just less shit I have to do. Thank you. I don't have to do interior design now. Photography, guys.
That's really great.
So Yuko, I know that you also have some initiatives that you're working on before all of this and also during all of this. Let us know what that is so we can definitely share your work and your vision with the bigger community at hand.
Wow. First of all, I want to give shout out to Paloma because this is so exciting, and I remember talking about how your design was still in development stage, and to see you do this, it's just so exciting to me. And thank you for sharing who you are, and just yeah, it's so exciting. Thank you. You know what I'm doing, like I'm working on a couple of different projects, but just jumping on to really honoring the essential workers and frontline workers. One of the things that I'm doing is collecting the letters and sending it to the folks. The second batch will be going out tomorrow, and one of the folks who tend to be left out are MTA workers, and I want to honor them, so I'm be sending out the love notes to them tomorrow. And another thing, I'm doing a virtual check-in for artists and creative folks, and just so that we can have a space, whether that is a creatively or just as a person, somewhere that we all creative can get together and have a conversation. So that's every Friday at noon over Zoom. And there are so many beautiful things that I don't even know, man. I don't even know. There are a lot of things that I'm doing, and sometimes I forget which one am I doing right now.
What am I doing?
What am I doing right now? But those are two things that I really want to give a shout out. And yeah, thank you for having me.
people follow you or support you and what you're doing?
Great. Thank you for saying that. You can find me on my website, which is www.yukoislovelivelife.com, or on Instagram, it is yukoislovelivelife. And if you want to send and contribute to the love notes for essential workers, that you can email it to me, and then yukoislovelivelife@gmail.com. And I'll be sending that out to all these amazing people.
And that's what I mean. Like, how many people are sitting at home thinking about getting letters to MTA workers, you know, in a city with 10 million people, and we all use MTA.
Yeah.
That's why that's important, because somebody might think, well, yeah, that'd be cool. I'm not doing it though. And here's Yuko to the rescue. So thank you. Really.
Yeah. Loris, tell us a little bit more about what you're working on during this time, what we can.
So I am working on actually writing in different languages. So I'm working on writing in English, Spanish, and French. So I'm working on that. I'm also working on, excuse me, I'm also working on, I host a Motivational Monday every Monday at 8 p.m. Just to give people motivation throughout this time, and to find motivation in things that they may not think that they can find motivation. Stillness was one of them, and it came up today that I spoke about. And even like finding motivation in your emotions and how to create through your emotions. So those are some of the things that I'm working on at this time. That's it. Oh, you can find me on Hues of Bell on Instagram.
That's it. Like that. It's interesting. That's it. And we all have like 50 million things, and that's it. Okay, that's it. And I think we all do that as creatives. Like, you know, because we're so creative. I don't think I could even focus on one thing, even if I wanted to. Like, it wouldn't even work in my life. Like, I'd be like, what's next? Like, so. We really appreciate you all for joining us tonight. This was a great conversation. Even in this conversation we got to create and think a little bit deeper. Hopefully this is something that will inspire others to think about what art is and what creating is. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep creating, keep being great. Everyone checking us out, follow everybody that we had on there. They're always doing amazing things. Stay up to date with us. I am Perspective 11 at Gmail. I.mperspective on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. Episode 17. We still going, baby.
Radio. Yes.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks
day.
a lot, everybody. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nah.